What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Jacked Ramsays. Hopefully everything worked the way it was supposed to this time. Check 1, check 2. All of my feedback loops say no feedback, no echoes. The simple things in life. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Jacked Ramsays. Danny Marang. God, it still sounds weird to not say and Brandon Sprague. I'm not going to lie. It's my guy. It's my guy. Sorry I'm a little bit late. Be bluntly honest, I fell asleep. It's been a long day for your boy. It's been a long couple of days for your boy. I've been very busy, as you might have noticed. Share with your friends, share with your family. We'll be in your guys' living room again. I guess that's the first place to start here. Rip City wrap up. Myself, Joe Simons, Tyree Smith, KATU. The news went out yesterday afternoon. It's good to be back. It's been a long time coming in a sense. So one of these days I'll share exactly how it all came about and everything that went into it. But just know that I'm super excited. Joe and I are very excited, and we're super stoked to partner with Tyree and KATU. We're gonna go tomorrow, and there's gonna be some bumps along the way between now and the beginning of the season. It's gonna be something that we just kind of have to deal with. KATU is getting into this both feet first. I partnered with them because I genuinely think that they want to do this and they want to make this cool. And I'm genuinely excited about this. This is going to be fun. So, for whatever reason, my camera is being very obnoxious and focusing and refocusing. I don't know what's going on. Not a fan. Don't like it. I don't like it. Maybe it'll sort itself out here. I don't know. But again, to everyone who said something, who sent something, who DM'd, who texted, who replied in comments, thank you. Thank you. I mentioned it on the radio when we broke it, that when the KATU news broke, there was actually quite a few people that asked for outsiders to come back. And KATU saw that, and they saw that as a sign of they were making the right choice. So, thank you. Thank you. It was very cool of you guys to do that. I really appreciate it. All right. Now that stuff's out of the way. You guys gave a ton of questions. I'll talk about the game against Ratio van Ulm. We'll talk about little Ben Saraf, little Noah Senge last night in the building. Some interesting things I thought came out of that game from multiple angles. But we'll start there. Last night, of course, my app here crashed with all my stats on it. There we go. Thank you. Last night, the Portland Trail Blazers took on the BBL team. Probably the only BBL in the building last night. I don't think that's the kind of game that attracts many more than that. Yeah, look, I'm taking my cheap shots while I can. But the Portland Trail Blazers, they do not cover. Do not touch those preseason total lines against international teams. You never know who is going to or not going to play. That's where it gets a little bit weird. They were handling business. They got up by as much as 20, I believe. Yes, they got up by as much as 20. Ulm led by as much as 3 for 1 second. They're a fun little team, fun little squad, nice little developmental squad. That certainly plays a style that's interesting, entertaining. But that's not what we're here for. Last night you didn't have Anthony Simons, you didn't have Robert Williams III, you didn't have Shaden Sharp, Matisse Thybulle, or Jabari Walker. Instead, you started Scoot Henderson, Toumani Camara, Deni Avdija, Rayan Rupert, and Deandre Ayton. And I think I liked what I saw from most guys. They took care of some issues. Some guys experimented. I think for the most part, everybody looked better down the path that they wanted to go on. So let's just kind of start from the top with Scoot Henderson, because I think he's so far been the most polarizing player, and a lot of it has to do with his youth because he's going into year 2. But also, the polls that he has hit so far have been interesting, I think is the best way to put it. I really want to see kind of where this goes, because so far he was incredibly poor in Seattle. I thought he was better, certainly, in Sacramento. But there is there we go. My camera's being all kinds of weird. There we go. I think Scoot has been pretty polarizing. And his box score last night, 10 of 14, 23 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, no turnovers, grabbed 5 rebounds, knocked down a 3, got to the free throw line. All of those things, I think, are huge. It's one of those things where it's like, I can't really be negative because of the outcome, but there were some things that I wanted to pick apart last night. I mentioned this after the Kings game on Sunday night, in that Scoot has skill stuff to work on. Whether it's finishing, whether it's shooting, taking care of the ball, getting the offensive ball, pushing the pace, everything basically on the defensive side that he has to kind of continue to grow. But he has to plant a flag on something that he does every night. And I did not and have not liked Scoot's energy basically at all to start a single game so far. He is 20 years old and basically like a couple glow sticks short of his own personal rave. And on the court, that hasn't translated. I thought he came out really lackluster, and has come out really lackluster in every single game so far. And to the point where last night I asked around the team to make sure he wasn't sick at halftime. That's where I was sitting there going, because I'm like, look, this is where he should show out. This is where he should do stuff. This is where he should really shine. And it took until the final couple minutes of the first half to see Scoot really do anything. And part of my head said, okay, maybe he's just getting other guys involved. Maybe he's just trying to find these opportunities, and maybe he's just trying to do this, that. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, because number one, the game itself is against foreign competition. Sometimes it's hard to get up for that. But also in the back of my head, I'm sitting there going, Scoot should be getting up for everything. His energy should be the thing that's just insanely contagious. His aura, to speak the way of the kids here, should really shine. I don't think I have seen that to start a game, and I don't think he's the kind of guy that could, or should work his way into games. You should feel his physicality. You should feel his energy. You should just feel his presence. And that may sound like a lot, but like that's something you can control, particularly a guy like Scoot Henderson. For role players who aren't on the ball, that's hard to do. Scoot is on the ball. His hands are on the ball all the time. It's not I got to kind of work my way in. I got to make sure I get on the ball a little bit. I got to get my touches. With him, that's not the case, particularly through the preseason. When the ball's in his hands, he's good, ready to go. There's been no Anthony Simons. There's been no, I got to make sure I defer. Jeremy, sure, when he gets the ball, he's a play finisher, or DA's a play finisher, but it's not like they've been running a ton of pick and roll with DA or Jeremy. So the outcome of last night was really good for Scoot, and I'd rather see it trend that way. But the soft skill stuff is something I've really been watching, and to be totally honest, I've been underwhelmed and disappointed by. It doesn't mean it can't change. It doesn't mean he's doomed. It doesn't mean he's a bust. It doesn't mean any of those things. Because it's good to see the outcomes turn out better, right? cleaner floor game, better finishing, now lower competition. That's to be seen. And to be fair, in the locker room post game last night, talking to Scoot, I would say he was happy with his performance, but not outwardly, celebrating like, oh yeah, he understood. I think that there was a difference between him and everyone else. But I was disappointed isn't the right word, but I haven't liked his energy, and that's a big deal. Also in that starting group, Toumani Camara and Rayan Rupert. Rupert's getting the start over Chris. I think that was just something like, hey, let's see what he can do. I thought Rupes was sloppy with the ball as far as his passing. He had 5 turnovers. 2 of them were unforced. 2 of them, I think, were trying things, and then 1, I think, is just kind of a bad pass. That's fine. This is the time when guys like Rupes, guys like Chris, guys like Tu, hell, even Scoot, the young guys in general, this is when I want to see them try stuff. I think that's the option. Like, experiment. Have some fun. I talked to Rupes about his handle because he has genuinely improved it. It might be the single micro skill by any player that has improved the most this summer. His ability to handle the ball. Like, I no longer go, ugh, yeah. It's not the Alpha Rukaminu comic hour of, here we go. And there's not only a skill growth in it, there's been a confidence growth in it. And I think that's a big deal. Again, not all things linear. It's just like, okay, because what that allows him to do, because defensively, I think he's really growing. But offensively, if he can get to spots, because he wants to pass, and again, 5 turnovers to 1 assist, kind of underwater there, but you see the idea of what he wants. Like, Rupes wants to create. And something that he has done multiple times now is drive hard with his left hand in the paint, spin back to his right. And I asked him, I go, is that something specifically that you worked on this summer? And he kind of just said, yeah. You like that? Kind of a deal. Which, if you know Rupes, you know how he talks. It's great. But yeah, it was like, even when we started talking, I go, you know what's going to happen next, right? And I go, you're going to go on that scouting port, and they're going to spin you back. He goes, yeah, they're going to get that. He's like, I'm working on another move. So, but his aggression, getting to the free throw line, rebounding, defensively picking up at 90 feet, and really being a nuisance and being disruptive. He's going to be on the outside of the rotation looking in, but it's not going to be by far. And he's the kind of worker where if all of a sudden his three-point shooting starts to stabilize, and I truly believe it will, he's probably the guy that I'm most comfortable with of like the shooters on this team stabilizing their three-point percentage, that he could find his way one rolled ankle away from being in the rotation pretty heavily. Starting at the other wing, Deni Avdija, who we got a better look at last night. Interestingly enough, he finished with only 3 assists, but the number of times he tried to find guys on lobs who they either bobbled it or didn't go up directly, and maybe they didn't count it as an assist. I counted 7 last night. I have not had a chance to go back and watch last night's game yet. I usually do, but I have not yet. I will probably do that when I go into the Sengway and Saraf film this weekend. But Deni is just constantly eyes up, he keeps that dribble tight to him, a little in and out, shoulders kind of square, and then he'll lean into somebody, and he's just trying to find guys. And I think Toumani, his natural willingness or want to cut is going to benefit from that. I think Chris has a natural feel for that. I think DA is developing a feel for that. Donovan has good feel for it. I think it's more about understanding spacing and timing, and we'll talk about Donovan here in a little bit. But I thought you really saw Deni's desire to create. Like, he wants to bring other people into the fold. That is a natural thing that he wants to do. I think if you put Deni in the torture chair and went crazy, or like, what is the thing that you love to do more in basketball? A lot of guys, when you put them under pressure, it's like, I want to score. I think Deni wants to create. I think he has a natural desire and knack of wanting to create. And I think as they develop those relationships, I think it's going to get there. His physicality, his desire to get downhill, create those early opportunities, what you saw last night, and I think you saw it against the Kings a little bit. I think each game it's becoming more and more prevalent, and not just from Deni, just from the team in general, playing a little bit faster, playing with the desire and willingness to get downhill and get to the rim, because they did shoot 5 of 24. This is going to be a bad three-point shooting team. When NBA defenses start just packing the paint, it's going to be interesting to see how they dissect it. I had a few minutes with Nate Bjorkgren last night, and I am going to talk to him about things that they want to try to do, try to exploit, how they want to use certain players differently than they have in the past. And I'm going to do this in our first film series breakdown for all the Jacked Ramsays members on the Patreon. We're going to dive into the new sets and the new looks and the new wrinkles, because the Blazers are starting to deploy more looks, more opportunities in games, a lot more motion offense. If you caught the post game last night, I asked Chauncey Billups about their DHO and screen game and what they're trying to do. And Chauncey Billups has always stated that he wants to put opponents and defenses in the chase. And they have done a better job of that, of scheming things. Now, the execution has been a little bit flawed from the players, and I think they're getting better at it. They're getting a better understanding of angles, how to set them, how to get into sets, how to get into dribble handoffs. There's a lot of minutia and a lot of rapport that goes with those. It's kind of like a ballet. It's one where if you watch like Dame and Nurk for years, I don't care what you feel about Nurk or Dame or the combination of them. They were the most punishing 1-2 screening DHO partnership in the NBA for 3 years. It was absolutely vicious. I'm going off the top of my head. I believe Synergy had them at 1.21 points per possession, which is like, that's an insane offense by itself. They just crushed it, and it was like, okay. But so much that was one is the greatness of Dame, but Nurk's natural screening ability, his ability to free people up with those screens, the timing, when to roll, when not to roll, when to sit in the pocket, when to screen and rescreen, when to flip, when to get into the DHO, the empty corners. Like it was built up over years. And I think that's something that's going to take some time with these guys. And I think that's a lot of timing stuff. Leslie says a lot of passes not making into people's hands right now. I think a lot of passes are hitting guys like in the hands at the wrong time. A step too early, step too late. Guys maybe aren't really waiting for it. They're thinking maybe he'll throw it. There's just a general feel that comes because you see this more, I think, in football than you do in basketball. In college football, college quarterback, wide receiver open, is a chasm. The level of open in the NFL is this little teeny tiny window. It's the same as true in the NBA, but it's a slightly different thing because in college, those windows maybe are a little bit tighter, particularly on the inside because defenses are packed in. Those windows are a little bit bigger in a sense in the NBA because of floor spacing. However, you have better defenders, bigger, longer, stronger, faster, who take away those gaps faster. And so you have to have an innate understanding and ability to not only recognize what's coming, but to be able to make said pass and then figure it out from there. So, and I think you're seeing a lot of that pop up, particularly as it pertains to Deni Avdija. I got a chance to talk to Deni for just a little bit last night. I'm hoping to sit down with him, if not after tomorrow night's game. I believe we're going to have practice on Sunday. I'm hoping to talk to him about a couple different things and kind of what he wants to do. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see how that stuff shakes out. But just because of my availability with the radio show, I have not been able to get to practice when his availability was there because, unfortunately, because of world events of what Iran launched an attack at Israel on a day that Deni was supposed to speak at training camp, to be totally blunt. So he was not available for media that day, as he shouldn't be. And then for Yom Kippur, he was not available, and again, shouldn't be. So So that's that from that game. I like the way that the kids closed down the stretch. I was impressed by that. I shouldn't say that's all from that game. Toumani Camara has been huge. 2 has been huge, and I don't care if he went 5 for 15. He tried some stuff. He had some turnovers, but he crashed the glass. He was generating steals. He was blocking shots. 2 has just been that dude, and he's the guy that has shined the most. Is like it's the new shiny toy, and he is fundamentally understanding what he needs to do, when he needs to do it, and how he needs to do it. And that's that maturation process of physically growing, getting a little bit stronger, knowing your role, and showing out in his role. I think I've likened him, he's here on the radio, it all blends together, a little bit to Wes Matthews, just coming back with a little bit something new each season. And I think that's a path that Toumani could find himself on. And I said this the other night at the game. I think 2 has done more than enough to where, as of right now, if Shaden is not going to be available, which he's not, that 2 should start on opening night. Start Ant, 2, Deni, JG, DA. That's where I'm at with that. It's not a punishment for Scoot, so to speak, as much as it's 2's earned it. And it makes more sense. And everyone's like, well, Scoot's got to play. Scoot is going to play 28 minutes off the bench. I want to get him with more players, but the idea of that he has to start doesn't really make sense, because if you start him, you're putting him in a bad position. And I don't think that's necessarily what you want to do. And I pushed back against this last year, and then folks kind of saw. It's not so much earning it, it's about fit and opportunity and taking next steps. You're just taking one class and graduating on to the next. And I think that's going to be the thing that really needs to happen. All right, so that's that game. DA continues to be really good, incredibly efficient, hitting the offensive glass, taking threes, took and made another corner 3. I wrote about this on Twitter. If DA is going to take corner 3s and like hit the offensive glass at the rate that he's hitting it at, he might have a 22-12 season on dumb high efficiency. He's been incredibly good. We look at 2 as shiny and Chris making developments and new Deni. When you kind of look at DA and you go, because it's funny, DA is both underrated and thrown in the trash of like, he's not this, he's not that. It's like, yeah, but the things he's good at, he's really good at. If he's going to rebound on the offensive glass at like an 80th plus percentile and be a 90th plus percentile defensive rebounder while being one of the best 3 mid-range shooters in the entire NBA, while also taking and making corner 3s, it's like, yeah, that's a pretty good player. I like that. Donovan Clingan continues to be good defensively, hitting the glass. I'm hoping to talk to him. I want to kind of pick his brain a little bit on some offensive stuff, level of physicality, things of that nature. I'll hopefully have some more on that in the coming weeks. If you missed it, you can go to @DannyAndDusty on Twitter. I retweeted it. I'll probably retweet it again. His college coach, back-to-back national champion, Dan Hurley, joined Dusty and I on air Tuesday on 1080 on Danny and Dusty. About 15 minutes with Coach Hurley. He's great. We asked him, a former UConn Husky and perhaps current Portland Trailblazer may have given me some inside information on Coach Hurley to run by him to catch him off guard with his lucky underwear. So that was a fun conversation, and shout out to Coach for that. That was really, really great. Thank you for taking some time to join us. But all right, that's the game. I think I've said that 3 different times and then revisit it, but that's kind of where we sit with the game. Minor news transaction. I shouldn't say minor. It's big to him. The Portland Trailblazers have waived Devontae Graham. Not really surprising. Unfortunately, Devontae didn't really shine. If he had been, he was going to get limited opportunity always, but he needed to go out there and basically bomb away from 3 and be a guy that could be some instant offense / veteran mentor. And it just didn't happen. And to be fair, I think Delano has been pretty good. So, Delano played 60 minutes last night, 4-6, then knocked down some 3s. 4 assists, 11 points. Just the versatility that Delano gives you, I think that's probably going to ends up being the deciding factor. But then again, they may not actually keep Delano. They could just keep 14. That's something that's real out there. All right. You guys sent in a bunch of questions, so I want to make sure I hit as many as I can because we're already 25 minutes in. At Josh Dollar, I'm curious about the change in attitude around the potential of Scoot. He went from a generational level upside talent player to someone ceiling me seems to be fringe all-star. While it's too soon to say what he'll be, was the scouting off on him or was this always his level? This is a conversation I have now had with probably 6 or 7 national high-level evaluators and then probably a half dozen or so more NBA execs. None of them are out on him. None of them think that he has shown that much less than he could be capable of. All willingly admit that last year was rough. This could be a situation where there was some confirmation bias and maybe folks just liked what they wanted to see. And because Scoot is such a nice guy and because he has, again, that aura, he has that way that it carries himself, the confidence, the look, he flashes the smile, the dress, he hits all of the other boxes so hard that maybe that is, maybe there was a little bit more flash to it. But we won't know that for at least another year, probably 2. The generational level upside talent is probably off, to be honest. I think people got caught up in the Scoot Wemby stuff, including myself. Now, I tried to tamper some of it down, but I thought he would both struggle last year mightily, which he did, but I also thought we would see some more stuff before we did. So I'm kind of in that gray area of we'll see what kind of happens there. But scouting can be right, and guys can maybe just not take next steps for a multitude of reasons. I remember Josh Jackson coming out of Kansas, and despite intel on him, I wanted to believe in him. Talent-wise, crazy athletic, super twitchy, just raw feel, crazy athlete. Like, you're just like, okay, yeah, I know there's some intel stuff that's, but that happens probably a lot more often than people are willing to admit. But I let that cloud my judgment on him, and I put him higher than I should have. That was not the case with Scoot. The intel on Scoot was all good, and it still remains good. Part of, I think, the evaluators that I've talked to, their, not even pushback, but their support for Scoot is like, he works hard. So we'll see where that goes. It's far, 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 far too early to call anyone a bust. The only guys I think you can call busts that fast, it's the Anthony Bennett's. It's, unfortunately, Johnny Davis with the Washington Wizards. Like, that was like, oh, there's something wrong here. Those are more, I think, missed evaluations than anything else. Whereas Scoot, I think it's like, what level can he get to? So, at Mark Coker, do you think the over-under Blazers number of games win this year is a good bet? If the team stays healthy and with the new additions and less chaos than last year's team makeup. All right, let's take a look where the line was, because last I looked, it was a 20.5. Let's see. NBA over-unders wins. Let's go. Updated. Craptastic. Portland Trailblazers at 21.5 to 22.5. Actually, I get down to 20.5. I'm not touching any line between 20 and 22.5, because I think that's exactly where they're going to land. You give me 23.5, I probably take the under. You give me 19.5, I'll take the over. I need one more game each way to figure that out. So, and I've talked to people who make, who gamble for a living, and they have told me that they don't like much of the market this year, which means I think the books did a pretty good job of nailing stuff down. There's a couple bets that they do like. I asked about the Blazers, and they said they weren't touching that. So, is it a good line? Great line for Vegas. Not a good line if you're doing that, again, as always, for information purposes only. Kenny Whitney at Kenny Whitney 11 is getting crafty around the rim for Scoot, a skill that players can learn as easy as outside shooting. That's actually a really good question. And I don't mean that to sound condescending. I've just never thought about it like that. For some guys, improving their shooting, it ends up being not an easy thing, but it's something that happens. For some guys, improving as a finisher becomes, I think you have a natural inclination for not necessarily one or the other, but you either have it or you don't. Scoot had some finishes last night where I went, that's better. Again, their center they had out there, who was listed at 7 foot tall, who was not 7 foot tall. He was listed at 7 foot tall, and he's maybe 6'9.5", 6'10". I saw him next to Duop, and I went, and then I saw him next to Clingan, and I went, Donovan Clingan's not 7'6" or 7'7". So, but I say this because Scoot's finishing was better because there was a smaller guy at the rim. The thing that stops Scoot from being a decent, good finisher is that he does not know how to finish around NBA bigs. He doesn't. Like, the Ivica Zubac's of the world, eat him alive. And I asked him after the game, he mentioned at Media Day that he had been working on his hips and his core. And I asked him if it was like, if those were things that he was using to kind of translate to changing his launch point and being stronger in and around the rim. And he goes, no, it was more about body control stuff. And he said, his coaches and his trainers that he's been working with was more about this year keeping the ball higher. Like he goes, I don't want to do like as much with my hands as I did last year. He goes, I still want to show up for the fans, switch, have a little bit of fun. But he goes, I can do stuff, but I need to make sure I don't bring the ball down. I need to show it and keep it high, and then make sure I finish strong. That's a thing I think that you're really leaning on. And for him, if you're asking Kenny, I think it'll be, to be fair, I think his outside shooting is going to be fine. That's something I've actually kind of lived on for a while now. Just watching him shoot, I think he'll be about a 36.5% to 37% three-point shooter. That's where I think he's going to end up. I don't think he's Westbrookian. I know he had some bad misses last year, but as the season progressed, he has gotten better on pretty much every aspect of it. Keeping his, again, that's where that core and the hips, the body control, keeping that center of mass over one spot. You can do that, and if you've got that otherworldly body control, your feet can be a mess, and your upper body can be a mess, and you can. Only thing that matters is like how you the Jokic thing, in that it's everything, or Dirk even. Both those guys, everything looked like a disaster until they release the ball, and then it leaves their hand, and it feels like the ball's carried to the rim by angels and gently and softly pushed into the rim. And you're like, yeah, okay, that's different. So, but that's a good question. I'm going to ask a couple of skills trainers about that, because the finishing around the rim is so much more about, I think, changing pace. And Scoot did mention that. That was the other thing he said. I should remember when I asked him about his hips and his core and strength and those things, is like changing gears. And that's the thing I thought he was really poor at last year. His inability to get in and out of gears, speed up, slow down, get all the way up to top speed, gear back down, just be able to bang through gears as fast and consistently as possible, because his athleticism wasn't on display nearly as often as it should have been. Andre at DreBob0, if they start Toumani, how will opposing teams score? They won't, very clearly. No, look, I was talking to Damian Lillard this summer after after the Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges. And hope he doesn't mind me saying this, I'm just going to say it anyways. It was funny because they now have OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges. Those are the three players that Damian Lillard wanted to bring to the Portland Trailblazers. And you look at what Portland is doing right now and how they have built this team. And this is why, for everybody's like, you just like Joe and you just carry water. No, I like what he's doing in the sense of the way that this team is being built, Jeremy Grant is 6'9". Toumani Camara is 6'8". Chris Murray is 6'8". Deni Avdija is 6'8", 240 pounds. Donovan Clingan is 7'2". They're big as hell. And you get a bunch of wings in a big, and you get some playmaking, and you get some shooting. All of a sudden, you've got an elite scorer, and Ant is not on the level as Dame, but he's a guy who's Dame light in the sense of his gravity goes out to 30 feet, and what you have to do with him on screens is very reminiscent of what you have to do with Dame. You have to make decisions. And I think putting Ant with a bunch of wings and a high-level big like DA, and for all those people who don't like him, I don't care. He is. He's a high-level big. He's a 20-10 guy who's very efficient. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see how that looks. And I really, 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 really want to see how effective that can be against good NBA teams. Like, it's not going to hold up because you don't have the necessary requisite shooting. Like, OG has turned into a plus shooter. Mikhail can create, like, he's a great number 3 if he's your secondary, creator who can also shoot from the corner and get to the rim. Josh Hart is the best rebounding guard in the NBA. And OG has a little bit of wiggle, and Jalen Brunson's an MVP candidate. But I think that's something really worth looking at, and I want to see how that looks. Johnny at PNW Sports 503. What is the realistic upside of Time Lord's rehabbed trade value compared to where it's at now? Is that delta worth chasing versus cashing out now and getting Clingan primary backup minutes he could clearly handle from day one? I'm going to work my way backwards here. Saying Donovan Clingan can clearly handle primary backup minutes from day one is probably an over-exaggeration. You've seen him against Ivica Zubac for 4 minutes and Alex Len for 5. And he's been okay. He's still going to fall. This isn't him not playing 40 minutes a night is not going to hurt him. He's going to play probably 12 to 16 minutes. And he still needs to get in shape. He still needs to develop a lot more feel. And Rob getting out there and showing that he can play and being a value of a team is significantly more value than force-feeding Donovan Clingan minutes right now. It's fine. It's entirely fine. There's nothing that they're chasing there. I get what you're saying, and I hope that after last year, and this isn't a shot at you, Johnny. This is this. We have got to stop equating minutes played to development. You've got to have good minutes. You've got to have a good environment, and you have got let's use Donovan as a perfect example. If he goes out there and plays 28 minutes, but he is gassed at the end of 2 8-minute shifts, and the final 2 minutes of each shift is just crap, that's not any good for you. So you've got to find that way to okay, where are we getting the best minutes for him? And I think you just kind of slowly build that up as opposed to, and this is I think you're going to see the same thing, or you would have seen the same thing with a Zach Edey last year. Edey went back to college because he just wasn't capable of playing that many minutes. He put his body in an unreal place. And I give him all the props in the world, and now he can go out there and grind. And I think you're going to see Donovan kind of have to take that same level, because remember, Zach Edey played in college for 4 years. Donovan only played 2 years. He's still a little baby. It's crazy. Donovan and Scoot I looked this up the other day. They're 50 days apart in age? DC's a little baby. So there's still plenty of time for him to work some stuff out. Blazers fan at _Blazers_fan. Fill in the blank. Out of 30 teams, the Blazers finished with a what record? 27th? The only 2 teams that I think are clearly worse than Portland are Brooklyn and Washington. Clearly worse than Portland. And understanding team goals and what they want to have accomplished. So, yeah, I think that's where it's at. Nathaniel Carter at Nathaniel Pilot. Oh, this is an interesting one. I didn't see this one earlier. I didn't think Donovan played well against them. Seemed to have trouble handling passes or controlling rebounds. Thought he played well against Sacramento, especially the time he was guarding DeMonis the other night. Do you see it that way? And what is his ceiling on offense? This is a great question. Nathaniel. It is actually something I am writing. So, in watching Donovan Clingan, I'm giving away the goods for free here, but hey, that's what you come to the podcast for. The Donovan Clingan is, I think he's going to be a good prospect. I don't think the ceiling on him is crazy, but if he's all of a sudden turns into this like kind of playmaking hub and a 7'2" guy who can shoot threes and it's like an 80% version of Marc Gasol, that's a pretty damn good player. That's tough. But he's somebody I think that is not necessarily gotten by, but because he has always been so big, he has not had to refine some things. And when you're talking about handling passes or controlling rebounds, I think his hands are good, not great. And I wonder what that looks like and how you can you develop hands? I think that's a really interesting thing, along with like what's harder to develop with finishing around the rim or a jump shooter. I think those are very, very, very nuanced and difficult development questions, of which I have notes to talk to people about. But the controlling rebounds part of it, he has been so big his whole life, his arms so long, that he's never had to be a guy that high points rebounds. You just kind of go grab them because he's so big. And I noticed that a couple times last night against Ulm, where he let the ball kind of fall. Instead of catching it up high above his head, he let it kind of get face or chest high. And I think that's just a thing that he's going to have to adjust to in the NBA, is that guys will go get him. And I think he's still a good rebounder, but I think he could be great if he fundamentally changes a couple of things. Offensively, God, this is going to scare some people, and this will probably somehow end up on Reddit or something like that, because this is how aggregation works now. I think Donovan knows how to use his physicality defensively. I don't see it offensively. And with that, Myers Leonard got tagged with the same thing of not using his big physical frame. I would like to see him be aggressive to the point where he picks up offensive fouls more because of physicality than not, if that makes sense. I want to see him every now and then. He had an opportunity with a guy a foot shorter than him on his back last night, and it was same thing as he did in Seattle when he had Derek Jones Jr. on his back. It didn't even look to back him down. Look, I'm not asking him to turn into Hakeem, but give me one boom. Give me one hard power dribble. Put a shoulder in a guy. And if you send him into the fifth row because he's going to flop and he knows it's coming, all right, fine. If you accidentally catch an elbow on somebody's jaw, okay. I'd rather that and have to dial him back a little bit, because he's not a shrinking violet. That's not the thing at all. I just don't think he knows how to access his physical tools as well offensively as he does defensively. And so I think that's where like the played well part of that. And I think that's what's going to be really, really interesting to chart in his development. And it's something I actually want to talk about with him, because I think that does impact his ceiling on offense. I've said it a number of times. The offensive thing, like the scoring thing that I want to see from him the most, is be a physical force around the rim. And number two, develop one move. Give me a baby hook. Give me a drop step. Give me a step through. Give me an up and under. Hell, just give me a turn and go, like a Zach Edey, like lean in and float it over the top. Like, again, I'm not asking for the world here. I just, something very, very, very simple. But those are those micro differences, the changes from the college game to the NBA. They're very, very real. And when you're that big, this is a perfect example. Let's you can use this dichotomy, the comparing of Scoot Henderson versus Donovan Clingan. Entirely different players. But you take a look at Scoot, right? Because of his size, everything else has to kind of go right for him, right? He has to be a higher level athlete. He has to be able to develop as a finisher. He has to have some sort of jump shot. But positionally, it's the same thing as well. But Donovan can be like, I'm 7'2". I am literally, because of my size, such a rare commodity, not only in the NBA, but the world, there is such a shortage of me that 1 in 5 of me, 7-foot males, have the opportunity to play in the NBA. That's a real stat. If you are 7 foot tall, statistically, it's a 18% chance, nearly 1 in 5 chance that you will have the opportunity to play in the NBA. And when you get to 7'2" or 7'3", because Donovan, again, I will say this a million times until you all get in the building to see this man, is so freaking big. The stuff he can get away with is significantly less bothered by X or Y. It's very interesting. But the wins on the margins can be more significant. Because if he's a guy who, rebounds at the top, if he's a guy who, when he grabs a rebound or offensive tip in, or doesn't need to grab it, he just grabs it, puts it back in, or has very soft touch on putbacks, or just has very good timing, or knows how to show in the dunker spot and keeps his ball high and dunks as often as possible. Like, I want to see Donovan Clingan should not average a ton of points. Like, at most, probably 7.5, 8 is probably where I'm leaning. Unless it's a 3, his 2-point shots, his dunk percentage should be goofy. Like, it should just be dumb. That's what I want to see from him. That's what I want to see. And I think that's when you talk about his ceiling on offense. If he's a guy that gobbles everything up, dunks everything. Look, Rudy Gobert, no offensive bag. None. Dunks everything, averages 15 a game. He can't shoot outside of 2 feet. He has 0 post footwork. He has no touch outside of 3 feet. 15 a game. Because he dunks everything. Everything. And like, that's such a, his effective field goal percentage and his rim finishing has been, near the top of the league basically since he became a starter. That's the kind of thing, like, look, if Clingan turned into that kind of finisher, great. I'm not asking for that, but I'm just saying, like, that's what I think of when I go down that route. But great question, Nathaniel. That is one I'm going to go back and revisit and talk to Donovan himself about throughout the season. Ryan West, is the tank over with going into next year? Hopefully. This is putting far too much pressure on one single pick or one single player. But if Cooper Flagg is the player that I think he is, and Heiken mentioned this last night. He tweeted it out, but there was over 50 executives and scouts in the building last night for Noah Sengue and Ben Saroff. And I talked to a bunch of them about them, but I also talked to guys about this class. And everybody wants to talk Cooper. If he is as good as I think he is a franchise-changing player. He's a cornerstone that championships are built on. Now, somebody else might be that in this class. Might be VJ Edgecombe. It might be Ace Bailey. It might be Dylan Harper. And we'll dive into all of that stuff as it goes. But they still need more. So if you're talking the outright tank, that would probably be over if they landed him, I would imagine. But you never know. That's the unfortunate part about this process. It really is. Slater Smith, at Slater J. Smith, what are you most excited about when it comes to being back on TV and a TV show? Number one, being back with Joe. Joe Simons is one of my very, very, very good friends, and I love working with him. And he, much like Brandon Sprague, he brings out the best in me selfishly. He puts me in the best position, and I love that about him. I very much want to work with Tyree. I think you guys are going to love him. He's a very high energy guy. He's still relatively new to the market. I think he's been here now for 10 months. Younger than Joe and I. If you're listening to this on Friday, I'm 40 now. So I am the old guy in the crew. But I am very excited about being on TV because it's another outlet to talk to you guys, to talk basketball. Like, I am not joking, and I don't want to deviate on this too much, but I got the radio gig 2.5 years ago. I've had jobs where I made a lot of money. I've had jobs that I've absolutely loved. I've absolutely hated everything in between. Since I started at 1080, I have not woken up once and not wanted to go to work because I truly, genuinely love my job. That is the same thing about covering basketball. When I got back in the Moda last night, I was geeked. I love this. I live for this. I am a basketball sicko. I love it. And so every opportunity to do that and to do it with one of my very good friends and with KATU, who, again, I genuinely believe this is not, look, I know I'm corporate guy now because I'm actually a KATU employee, but I genuinely think they give a damn and want to put a good product out, and they want to give good support and shoulder programming and build a very good relationship with the Trailblazers. I would not have gone down this path if I thought otherwise. Like I said, I'll talk about why this is happening now and not as opposed to a few years ago, somewhere down the road. But yes. Question number 2, in a world where Toumani becomes a long-term starter, is he a 3? Can he start at the 3 or 2 one day? In other words, can 2 and Deni coexist as long-term starters? I think that's an interesting question for this season. Can 2 be a 2? There haven't been many guys like him. The way I started thinking about this, I was on the phone with somebody in the NBA on the way home from the studio today, and we were talking about who I thought was going to start and, why and this and what could happen here. And we started talking about 2, and I go, hear me out on this. I know it's not a perfect comp, but the peak of Toumani for me is kind of like supersized Danny Green. Very smart, high-level IQ, grinder, defensive player, 3-and-D that adds a little something, but can start on literally any team in the NBA as your 5th starter. And I think that's where he's at. Whether it's at the 2 or not, I don't know. I would like it if he could flex. Look, he can play 2 through 4, legitimately. The thing is that if you do have 2 out there, you need, I think, Deni, and you need one other creator. So that means you need another wing who's a plus creator, and that when you get into that, look, if you got Cooper Flag, look, you got, Ant, 2, Deni, Coop, DA, that's, sure. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Ace Bailey, sure, okay, yeah, for sure. Then you could right on down that path. But it does make things a little more difficult because of the lack of creation and lack of shot creation, both for himself and for others. So it's going to be interesting there. Jonathan Ellsworth at Squirrely Bear. Jonathan, I have seen you. I've replied to you. You followed for a long time. I never noticed your Twitter handle was at Squirrely Bear. Great handle. Is it more important for Scoot's development and the team seeing how he fits with Ant that Scoot start, or did Toumani play so well he has to start and bring Scoot from the bench? Personally, I want to see Ant, Deni, 2, JGDA. This feels like a sporting cast for Dame. Hey, there you go. Yes, that's very much what we talked about earlier. I don't think it's necessarily important for Scoot's development that he start. I think it's more important that he finishes. And I think that's where, when we talked about this earlier, I didn't really get into that because I remember reading that part of it as much, that part of your question. And I think that's probably more important, being able to toggle on and off in that situation. Ant and Scoot, until Scoot's going to have to basically spend this year knocking down shots before he can play with another primary ball handler like Ant and not have his defender sag off 3+ feet. That's just kind of the gist of that. And that's the problem with if you start Scoot and Ant, is in doing so, if you take Scoot off the ball, you are optimizing Anthony in a sense because defenses feel more threatened by him. Again, this is a guy who was blitzed the second most in the NBA outside of Luka Doncic. That's no BS fact. But if they don't worry about him and he's not able to punish them as a shooter, Scoot's defenders now sagged off and there's less room to operate, whether that you get into pick and roll, you get into any kind of, drag action, you get into any kind of Iverson cuts, any zoom actions, anything along those lines, there's less space basically in the middle of the floor, and they're going to take that away, and it makes Ant's life more difficult, which makes it more difficult for everyone else. And then it's just kind of this domino effect that it doesn't help anybody. And so if Scoot's going to be on the floor, I want to see him with the ball in his hands. Now, I think down the stretch, that's where you kind of toggle that ability and you just kind of switch it up a little bit because you haven't seen it all the way down through the game, and you're not loading up for it. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at with that. It's going to be a storyline to follow, for sure. Blazers fan had another question. What was the best part of the Pokemon sponsorship of the Rain City Showcase? Giant Pikachu hats for everyone. I gave mine to Connor Bergen from Blazers Edge. And shout out Connor. If you guys aren't already following him on Twitter, Connor is Blazers Edge is back in the building. Shout out to the Blazers for and Dave Deckard for mending all old relationships, so to speak, and Rasan with the Trailblazers for helping make that. Connor is going to be a beat reporter for the Trailblazers or for Blazers Edge, and again, he's the first guy since me to be back in the building for Blazers Edge. That's a good deal, and so Connor's going to do the legwork. He's going to be at practices. That's a big deal. But Connor left with a couple of extra Pokemon hats. They had a bus outside with nothing but Pokemon merchandise. They had whole like Pokemon Go areas. There was a line around the building for take a picture with a 6 foot tall Pikachu. The Pokemon brand is strong, baby. Super strong. It was a fun event. Kids loved it, man. It was absolutely great. Would recommend if you have kids. Nerd Runner. You always have great questions, man. One of the pathways to success for Scoot that has been mentioned by you is a positive contributor on the defensive end. Do you think he has made any progress there based on preseason? Do you think he puts in the effort on that end? I'm going to sound like a jerk, but no. It's been one of my biggest criticisms of him this year. He's been lackadaisical in getting back, and it's something that I think is going to be addressed. And that's when I opened the show and talking about Scoot. He can't afford to be a guy who doesn't have the juice. And I don't just mean like bringing the energy, but like he needs to compete on defense. I don't care if you get beat, you get beat, man. But be aggressive, be physical, get back. The getting back part of it. Blazers much better against Ulm, but let's see how they do against the Jazz because they've been picked apart in transition. But I think that is something. The positive contributions on defensive end is being disruptive and forcing turnovers. Like I don't have any illusions of him turning into Drew Holiday. Turn into Russell Westbrook and gamble on steals. I honestly, I think I'd rather see that. To be totally honest, that's where I want to see. So, but hey. Let's see. At C Fletcher 1922, how excited you be going back to post game show? How soon did you get that put in motion? It got put in motion a long time ago. I'll just say that. There's a reason I broke the story with KATU, and not because I had a show. It's because talks were being had. We'll go down that road. Ken Spliffy Jr. God, that's a great name. At Rip City Jesus. What's the over-under lobs from Deni to Shaden this season? Thanks, love the show. Hey, thank you, appreciate you. Get Shaden out there and get him healthy. I talked to him was that before last night's game or was that in Seattle? Anyways, had a fun conversation with Shay, and Shay's gotten so much more comfortable in talking to us. He's a really good guy to talk with. But we were talking about the injury that he had, the core injury, the groin injury, and the realization, and I mentioned that Ant went through the same thing when the offensive burden kind of the first time fell on those guys. Like, oh, this is what it takes to be like an apex offensive hub. And Shay was like, yeah, my rookie year, I dunked a lot. I didn't year two. He's like, part of that, early was because I was injured, but also because it was like, it's hard. It's hard to go up and like play it, your chin above the rim when you're facing double teams and you're getting blitzed and you're getting trapped and you're getting bumped and like you're putting actions over and over and over again. Is like, I don't know how guys do that. He's like, and that's that. The realization of what it genuinely takes to do that stuff is crazy. And it's like, you have to learn how to pick and choose your moments. So like these guys that dunk all the time, I bet you if you looked, and I bet you somebody like Todd Whitehead could probably do this pretty easily with his stuff at Crumpled Jumper. if you did a cross section of players under 6'6" and dunk rates, I bet you there's probably a pretty strong correlation in shortened careers and injuries. Just because like it's a toll, man. But if you're asking what the over under is, and I remember telling Shaden, you need to average a dunk a game. Like there's no reason for you to not. And he kind of was like, okay, I'll try. But Deni should be looking for a lob a game for sure. Now whether or not that's Shaden or not, I don't know. Hell, I put Deni on lobs per game probably at 1.5. That's something I really, really, really want to see from him. Is those opportunities taken. Jason at Hecubus01, in honor of spooky season, which horror movie should fans watch to prepare for the season? My favorite recent horror movie, and it shocked me to my core, was Hereditary. And I'm saying that because it starts out, you're thinking it's one thing, and then it goes a completely different way. And I think that's going to be what this season probably ends up being is, hey, you want to look at this, but now you want to look at this. And now, there's this. So I think that's what I'd go with. My wife and I, it was one of the, crazy enough, my wife loves scary movies. I think that was one of the first movie dates we ever had. And I remember leaving that theater going, oh my God. Good Lord. It's terrifying. A lot more questions about Toumani starting. It's Kyle at KHartos44. We're going to wrap some stuff up here real quick. What's your pie graph on career outcomes for two? I think that he very good role player is where he's at right now, or hovering abouts, to the championship level role player. I think that's his ceiling. And I don't want to take anything away from it. He could blow past that. If everybody knows, you're Ant's guy. If you go back and listen to me talk about Ant early in his career, I never said that Ant could be a sixth man or a starter or this or that. I just said, look, with Ant, I know two things. One, he can shoot the living hell of the ball. Two, he can get his shot off against anybody. And when you have that kind of skill set that can come together, that can make you very, very, very dangerous. Now, he's one of the better scorers, not just on the team, but in the league. Like, you take a look at how many guys can do what he does, to shoot with the effectiveness and finish with the effectiveness that he has offensively. And I'm not saying he's the best player in the world, or I'm not even saying he's an all-star, but he's a very, very, very good player. And if you had said that he was going to average 20 and 5 and 4 and shoot 45, 40, 90 at that point in time, no one would have believed you. Not a soul. So I don't like putting limitations on stuff, but I think when you look at Tu's skill set, because he doesn't have the ability right now, nor has he shown the ability to put the ball down on the floor, that does put a slight cap on what I think he can be. So I think he can be a very, 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 very good role player. But I think that's what's at Gabagufu, 70 Bub. At what point do you start Toumani and Deni over Grant? You don't. Jeremy Grant's a better player than all of them right now. I know everybody has their feelings about Jeremy. Jeremy's purpose is that he's a 20-point per game scorer who shoots 40% for three and could create his own shot. Jeremy is a better, more likable, better served version of Carmelo Anthony on the Trailblazers, in that the reason Carmelo Anthony existed on the Trailblazers, one, because Neil Olshey guaranteed him minutes and touches, which made this significantly worse, but two, because you could give him the ball and the outcome of that possession was going to be a shot. And more often than not, on young teams, on teams that are missing playmaking or creation or scoring, getting any shot is better than a turnover or a failure to execute or stumbling and stammering into something. You have a Hall of Fame caliber guy who's going to do it. Now, Jeremy's not the level of scorer or creator, but he's also not a guy who's going to take over and monopolize an offense, which Carmelo did. And so Grant's going to continue to start. At Shoot du Jour, what's the likelihood of Scoot ever adding left-hand finishes to the arsenal? Smaller, but he will. He'll get there. At Corey Trevorson, at ZimaGuy69, what's up with the Book Night thing? Okay, so this is something that happens in the NBA. It gets them some guaranteed money and some protections and other things that go along with this. You based on when and how, there's a whole rhyme and reason to this. When you sign guys to Exhibit 10s, you do this in order to get them the guaranteed, I believe it's prorated money and control with your G League team. That's why you sign them and waive them in the way that you kind of go down that line. So I think those are... Oh, here's a rotation question. E-Ray in the comments is actually asking what's kind of the thing that I'm going to ask right here. Jeff Kemper, assuming a full roster, no injuries, who becomes the odd man out, or better stated, outside the rotation? Jabari, Toumani, Clingan, Matisse. What trade best alleviates a logjam? And then E-Ray Petro in the comments said, Danny, please give me the top 8 Blazers in the rotation. Fully healthy. Ant, Shaden, Denny, JG, DA. That's your starters. Okay. Off the bench, Scoot, 2, DC, Rob. Now, which wing kind of fits in there? Is it Tease? Is it Chris? Is it Roops? Is it Bari? I think those are kind of the questions where it kind of goes. That's kind of where I see how that is going to shake itself out. That's going to be a very, very, very interesting spot to be. Bryce Smith asks, hey, Danny, what's the latest potential moves of veterans, Ant, Time Lord, Grant? Ant could have asked out and didn't. Jeremy could have asked out and didn't. Time Lord's rehabbing an injury. Of those 3 guys, Time Lord most likely to be traded, then Jeremy, then Ant. I think that's how this is going to go. So... but we'll get to that part when we get there. Okay, we're going on a little bit long, but I think that's the question. Leslie asked about our watch parties over now. I assume so with you on TV now. So I shouldn't put this out there because I haven't got it okayed yet. What I'm hoping is, okay, so this is how the TV show is going to work, guys. At home games, I am going to continue to do things as I have always done. In that I will go to games, I'll go to pregame media, postgame media, I'll be there for the games, talking to folks, with the Blazers, visiting team, all the normal stuff. What will end up happening is the game gets over, I'll go to do media in the media room, and then I'll go to the locker room and probably get one person. And to be honest, I probably won't get in the scrum. I'll probably talk to PR and be like, hey, I want to talk to this person, and away from the big crowd, because we'll get B-roll from whoever's from the Blazers, not from whoever. Once I wrap up there, I have a giant light that is literally sitting in front of me right now. And on that light has a bunch of mounts, and I will have my camera tied to that, and I will remote in to our studio at KATU. You'll get to see it tomorrow night. I've got pictures of all of the set. There's a lot of text coming in. All those text messages you see right there are all the group chat for the show tomorrow. But those, like, I will remote in with, doing a stand-up like you see in the background all the time with ESPN kind of doing. So I'll do the show from there. And the K2 studio's like, without traffic, like 12 minutes from Moda. My hope is that on road games, Joe and I and Shane, when we were doing Outsiders, we used to watch games together. So me, Joe, and Tyree are going to watch road games together at the studio. I would like to bring a camera with me and do the watch parties at K2 in the room there. And that's something I want to do with you guys. I think it'll be a lot of fun. That way all 3 of us can kind of talk and get into the show. So that's my plan right now. Best laid plans and all that. We're going to try some stuff. We're going to see what works, see what doesn't. But that's my hope for you guys right now. Okay? So, again, thank you all for being here. Ran a little bit long tonight. Like, rate, view, subscribe. Help us grow the show. Help me grow the show. The Jacked Ramsays Patreon, there's 3 different articles that are going to be coming out over the weekend. It's going to be content. It's going to be fun. So if you want more of my written stuff, you want the video stuff, you want to do the video watch parties, or not the video watch parties, but the film sessions. The first film session will probably be the 28th or the 29th, whatever game night that we have off. The 29th. 29th is the in-between. So it'll probably be the 29th.
and it'll be a couple games. I think they'll play 3 or 4 games by then. Yeah. So they played 4 games by then for things to look at there. So if you want to be a part of that, the email will go out and we'll have you guys in there. It'll be a ton of fun. Again, share us with your friends. Share me with your friends, family. Please tune in tomorrow night on 2.2. The Blazers gave away 5,000 antennas in the span of 4 hours yesterday. I'm going to get in trouble for it. They're going to do more. So just hang on. This is what I mean when the Blazers are they care and they're trying. For everybody that's in the Deschutes County Bend area, go with Blazer Vision. Look, my employer probably wouldn't want me to tell you that right now, but go do it. It's just gonna. It's not done yet. They're trying to get that, and it was always going to be something that was going to be difficult because of the geography and because of the topography and different issues that come up with that. If you live in that area, Blazer Vision is your best bet. Go down that path. And if you, on the TV side of things, bear with us. Look, I work for the company. I will, if you have issues, if you have questions, if you have comments, complaints, tweet them at me, please. Be nice, mildly. I will do my best to. I've got a great relationship with the tech folks there. They have been so great and accommodating with all the stupid questions that I've asked. Get them to me, and I will pass them along as best that I can. Okay, that I promise I will try to do. I will do whatever I can to try to help you guys in that vein. So bear with us as we kind of work through some stuff between now and January 1st, and then we'll figure everything out from there. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Take care. If you're at the arena tomorrow night, come say hi. Let me know. And then after tomorrow night, it's regular season basketball, guys. The season's here. So you can follow me on social media at Danny Marang, at DMarang on Instagram, because that squatter's still on there. You can email me, jackedramsays@gmail.com. Enjoy tomorrow. Enjoy the season. Enjoy everything. Have a wonderful night. Take care. Talk soon.